go through a couple more questions. Greg, starting off with you. What is the purpose of the Hadron Collider? How dangerous is it? And can human consciousness have any effect on it?
That's 3 questions.
What's the purpose of the Hadron Collider?
So, no,
you didn't hear the rest.
Those 3 questions, if I'm understanding the question correctly, physicists throughout the world are struggling to build a new story of you, me, our creation, and the beginning of our universe, because the old story is no longer working. We have been struggling now. Science is about 300 years old. Science for 300 years has been struggling to come up with what is called a unified field theory. Have you all heard of that before? It's a theory that unifies the old physics, the new physics. It's a story in mathematic terms that is about us, how the universe began and where we fit in. And they have yet to find that story. They cannot find that unified field because the thinking of the way the 2 levels of physics is incomplete. And the piece that they've left out is consciousness. Traditionally, scientists have been reluctant or resistant to include consciousness in the unified field theory. John Wheeler, Professor John Wheeler, Princeton University, just died a few years ago. He died in, he died in 2008, so it's been more than a few years now. He was a colleague of Albert Einstein's, and he was one of the last bright lights in the world of physics that was a proponent of consciousness being a fundamental force in the universe. And what he said, this is so elegant, what he said, we will never find the smallest particle of matter, and we will never find the edge of the universe. We keep sending space probes out, and they go further and further, and every time the scientists say, oh, I think we found the edge of the universe, and they look, and there's something else there. And every time they bang these quantum particles together at the speed of light, and they shatter them into these tiny, tiny fundamental pieces, looking for the smallest piece of matter, and they think they've got it. They look, and then there's something even smaller. John Wheeler said it will always be that way, and here's the reason why, and it's exactly what Joe has just said. He said it is the act of consciousness looking at itself that is a creative act in and of itself. The act of looking for a smaller particle will promise that we always create something for us to see, no matter how small it gets. The act of looking for the edge of the universe promises no matter how far out we go, the act of us looking will create something for us to put there. Consciousness is what's missing in those fundamental forces. So, the Hadron Collider, or Cern, you all know about the Cern Collider. What they are doing is attempting in the laboratory to recreate the moment, the instant that the universe began, by colliding these quantum particles together at the speed of light. There's a 7-mile tube going one direction under the ground and a 7-mile tube going the other direction, and each tube they begin to accelerate a quantum particle until it's reaching the speed of light, and they're going in opposite directions, and at just the right instant they collide them together to recreate those first moments so that they can see what those fundamental laws are all about. Until they acknowledge the role of consciousness in that moment, that instant, I think we're going to come up short with this fundamental story, this story of creation. If we've been looking for 300 years using the best minds, the best equipment, the most money from government funding, and we haven't found it in 300 years, doesn't that tell you maybe we're not on the right track? That's what it says to me. They just keep building bigger and bigger machines that are going to collide these things faster. We're learning a lot, but it's not telling them what they want to know because they've left that part out. And the part they're leaving out, that's where this is interesting, is quantum experiments have shown that the particles behave one way when nobody's looking, and they behave another way when someone is looking. To see a bunch of French and Swiss scientists watching this fundamental moment of creation, the question is, how much effect is it really having? So I don't think it's going to tell them what they're looking for. They're looking for the Higgs boson, the God particle. There are great songs written about the Higgs boson. I think they're going to be writing a lot more because I don't think that's where the answer is going to be.
So it's a waste of money, basically.
It's not a waste of money because it's telling us where we're wrong.
Right.
It's telling us what doesn't work, and we're learning a lot about the universe in the process of doing it. And you know, one of the interesting, it was the last piece, one of the interesting things is they are creating black holes in the process. And the question is, if you create a black hole in the laboratory, how far does it go? How long does it last? And what does it consume? Okay, there was a very similar question when we did the first nuclear chain reaction in Chicago, of all places, in the middle of America. When they had the first controlled chain reaction, they said, can we stop this thing? Or is it just going to keep going and going until there's a mushroom cloud over Chicago? Here's the answer. They said, well, on paper, we should be okay. They're saying the same thing about the collider. They're saying, is a black hole dangerous to create? Well, on paper, you know, it looks like it's pretty safe. I don't know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.